Hi, my name is Amy Kessler, and I am a freshman elementary education major at Salisbury University. My research is on minority representation in schools with a focus on teacher-student matching. To all of my students watching, I'm sure we can all agree that some days going to school seems like an intimidating task. For many minority students, however, the classroom is an intimidating environment every day. Certain factors, such as cultural miscommunication, hinder the success of minority students. The concept of teacher-student matching has been introduced as a way to promote increased achievement levels for these students. Teacher-student matching is the process of placing students in classrooms with teachers of the same race or ethnicity. Studies have shown that representing minority groups within the teaching profession is essential to creating environments that all students excel in, while simultaneously closing the achievement gap seen between minority and non-minority students. My research focuses on the direct correlation between minority student achievement levels and minority representation amongst teachers. I have found that when teacher-student matching takes place, increases have been seen in test scores, motivation and engagement levels, and attendance. Cultural miscommunication in the classroom has also been shown to decrease when teacher-student matching occurs. Minority teachers act as role models for their students, incorporate cultural learning strategies in their teaching, and create a comfortable learning environment for minority students. Overall, increasing minority teacher levels is crucial to creating a learning environment that promotes personal growth and success for minority students. On the left of the poster, you will see the introduction section, and there are two terms I would like to define before we go further into the research, as they will be mentioned a lot throughout. Student achievement levels are achievements seen in all aspects of a student's educational journey. This means that it includes things such as attendance levels and motivation and engagement levels, as well as test scores and grades. Achievement goes beyond what grade a child receives in the class, and it includes things such as if they're enjoying what they're doing, if they're actively participating, and if they're attending regularly. The next term is teacher-student matching. This is when teachers and students in a particular classroom share the same race or ethnicity. This is the concept that I am researching and that I plan to show how it benefits minority groups. A little background info, minority groups are underrepresented amongst the educational workforce. And in the past few years, we have seen increases in minority teacher numbers, but they have been small compared to the increases in the number of minority students. So there is still a large gap, as shown in figure 1, between the percentage of teachers of a particular race and the percentage of students of a particular race. So in figure 1, you can see, for example, that Black teachers make up 7% of the workforce, while Black students make up 15% of the workforce. So this shows a gap of about 8% between the number of students and the number of teachers. So this research question aims to show how the representation of minority groups in the teaching profession correlates to achievement levels amongst minority primary and secondary school students. In the middle of the poster, we have a section on achievement levels. So there are 3 categories that I'm kind of claiming are ways to measure achievement within schools. So the first one is test scores. This is where we see the grades, the physical score that shows the breadth of knowledge a student has. One study conducted in Florida over a span of 7 years concluded that Black students matched with Black teachers saw increases in test scores in both math and in reading. So this is an example of how matching students and teachers based on race or ethnicity has increased their academic achievement levels. Another category is attendance levels, and this is where students need to be present in school to actively learn content. And we have seen, like, amongst minority students, there tends to be low attendance levels in certain studies. This has been concluded, and this can be associated with intimidation or lack of interest within the way that they're learning or the classroom that they're present in. So one study shows that Black and Latina students, when paired with teachers of their same race, had increased attendance levels. This means that the students were enjoying coming to school more when they had a teacher who represented them, and this caused them to be more present and active in their learning. The last category is motivation and engagement levels. Motivation and engagement levels are seen as indicators of a student's academic skills. Children of color have, in many studies that I researched, have received lower ratings in these categories when compared to white children. Increases in motivation and engagement levels would thus indicate increases in academic achievement levels. So if students are actively participating, they're excited to come to school, they're excited to do their work, this would correlate with achievements in grades, test scores, and things mentioned above. So studies have shown that when teachers and students are matched based on race or ethnicity, they have had increases in motivation and engagement levels. On the right side of the poster, we have research on cultural miscommunication. So cultural miscommunication occurs in the classroom a lot more often than I think people recognize and realize. Cultural miscommunication in this aspect refers to when a teacher does not understand the learning style, the background, the culture of a student that they are actively teaching. So one example I have of this is in a study conducted on Inuit students in Canada. It showed that when an Inuit student had an Inuit teacher, they encouraged the use of the native language, which helped the Inuit student be more actively engaged, excited to learn, and just overall understand the content better. However, when the Inuit students had an English teacher, the English teacher would not allow them to use their native language, and this resulted in them feeling intimidated, uncomfortable, not scoring as highly on their tests and their assignments. And this just is one example of how misunderstandings of certain cultures can cause teachers to create stereotypes of their students and can cause them to have this miscommunication that overall just affects the students' achievements. So minority teachers can decrease cultural miscommunication within the classroom. The first way is that they can act as role models for their students. Feeling represented in the classroom is a really important part of making sure the minority student realizes that they can succeed and go far in their education. So oftentimes seeing a teacher who represents themselves, someone who is in a comfortable job, who is influencing all these other people, provides a role model for this minority student and shows them that they can go far with their education in the future and that they can also take on this type of position in society if that's what they aim to do. Another way is that minority teachers make the classroom environment less intimidating. So it has been shown that the presence of teachers of color decreases the sense of alienation that students of color who come from both poor and affluent backgrounds often experience in schools. So this was concluded in one of the studies I researched and just goes to show that when a student feels represented within the classroom, they are able to have a better learning experience and educational journey overall. The last way is that minority teachers can incorporate learning into the culture students are already accustomed to. So students within a diverse classroom often share lots of different cultures, and it is really important that that diversity remains, but it's also really influential if a teacher, for example, is able to incorporate some of their students' cultural learning styles into the concepts that they're teaching. So one example was that a colored teacher incorporated patterns seen within the African American church, such as choral readings, figurative language, and active audience participation into the classroom that she taught that was full of minority African American students. And this helped her students feel more comfortable with what they were learning. They caught on quicker. They were able to just enjoy the learning a lot better because they were already used to these teaching styles, and it kind of correlated to the way they were taught back home and how they grew up. So it's really important to incorporate a culture that students are already accustomed to into their learning. So overall, in conclusion, this research shows that placing students in classrooms with teachers of the same race or ethnicity has positive impacts on minority student achievement levels in terms of test scores, attendance levels, and motivation and engagement levels. We can also conclude that cultural miscommunication, which often hinders the success of minority students, decreases when students are placed with teachers of the same race or ethnicity. Before I end, I would like to just address a few questions that I'm sure I will get and just tackle them head on. So maintaining diversity within schools is a really important part of the learning environment that students experience. It's really important to have students be a part of a classroom where lots of cultures are represented because they can learn so much from their peers who have grown up in a different culture. So a common thing that many people think is that teacher-student matching will kind of take away this diversity and cause classrooms to be segregated in a sense. And that is not what we want to do at all. That's not what this research aims to show. So a way to prevent this is to simply have students be part of a teacher-student matched classroom, maybe for an hour a day or two to 3 hours a week, or just kind of exit their normal classroom where they're able to experience being around lots of different students from different races and different cultures, and go to a room where they're paired with a teacher of the same race or ethnicity. So we kind of already see this happening within schools regularly, as I'm sure everyone can relate to. Growing up, you saw students leave who needed a little extra help, students who had speech impediments, things like that. So this would also just be one of the ways in which students would be able to kind of exit their normal classroom for an hour a day, 2 hours a week, whatever this program the school wants to run, and be able to go into a classroom where they're with a teacher who represents them. They are able to feel comfortable. They are able to make mistakes without being afraid or intimidated, and they are able to be actively engaged, incorporating their culture, all of the things mentioned in the research. So in no way is teacher-student matching intending to decrease diversity in schools and like increase segregated classrooms, because that would defeat the entire purpose of the learning environment that we have strived to create. So thank you for listening to my presentation. If you have any questions, I would love to answer over email and share more about the studies I have learned about. Thank you.